You're probably one of the smartest people in any room you're in. You study, you research, you teach, you publish in an area, a specialization. With your higher education background, you are famous for being, well, good and smart about certain things. So why is it that most of us who are in higher education are absolutely horrible when it comes to money?
Mr. Vaccaro, I agree that the business is unfair. It's unfair to my son. It's unfair to people like you.
Let's find out how to change that. Let's find out how to use all of our abilities that we have in academia to actually learn how we can handle money better, to invest in ways that will actually build some genuine wealth. Let's take a look at what it will take for a smart person, someone smart like you, to actually be smart about their money. So tap the like button and let's get started. Hi, I'm James Callahan, and this is the Do-Over Show, and I've worked on the inside of higher education for years alongside hundreds of faculty and peers, and I can tell you, it's rather embarrassing how bad we are when it comes to money. Oh, we know how to complain about it. We just don't know what to do with it when we get it in order to keep it and turn it into more. Yeah, it's called investing. And by the way, even my friends in the business and in marketing and investment side of things, they're not the greatest at this either. What is it about being smart about something in higher education that makes us so bad and our own worst enemy when it comes to our own money?
But every once in a while, someone comes along that's so extraordinary that it forces those reluctant to part with some of that wealth to do so not out of charity, but out of greed, because they are so very special. And even more rare, that person demands to be treated according to their worth because they understand what they are worth.
We joke that we didn't go into academia for the money. We went into it for the love of learning and the dedication to our topic. And yet, what is the number one complaint by academics? We don't get paid enough. It may be that we don't know how to handle the money we do get paid, or how to leverage our skills and abilities as academics into ways that can turn money into more money. And we excuse ourselves from even learning the basics that the average investor in the world today seems to know because we're just stuck in our ivory tower. Well, it's time to change this behavior, to actually learn how to save, how to invest, and how to turn money into more money. And if you're ready to change, to start to change, this video is for you. Here are five basic practices that everyone who's good with money has in common. Those are the things, those are the no-brainers, those are the best practices. For most of us, those best practices are things we're not doing and they seem like the ceiling. For people who handle money, these best practices, they're the floor and they're the minimum that you need to handle your money well. What are the five? Here they are. Retirement investing options through your employer. Number 2, paying yourself first and how to do more than save money. 3, creating your own investment account that you are responsible for. 4, investing in value or growth stocks. And 5, how to take risks, diversify, and avoid over-diversification. So let's look at the details. The first one, retirement investing through our employer. Take advantage of any 401k or other retirement benefits offered by our employers, usually using things like TIAA or CREF, Teachers Insurance and Annuity Association, and the College Retirement Equities Fund. They split them recently. We use these because it often includes from our schools or universities or organizations, it includes a match of 2, 3, 5, 6%. So for every 2, 3, 4, 5, 6% we put in, the school matches it up to that cap of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6%. That's called free money. You get to double that small percentage of income. It's pre-tax, so you'll pay tax on it when you use it later. But for now, your 2% becomes 4% of your annual pay. That is, look for free money and take advantage of free money. Come on, you're in higher education. You know when things are free. You know when a lunch is free. You know when a reception has free snacks. You know what it's like to want to take home food from the buffet. Yes, you cheapskate. You know what's free. There's free money offered to you. Take it. And if your school doesn't have a matching program, that only means that you need to be much more aggressive with your own savings and retirement plans. The number 2 thing out of those 5 best practices that will help us as academics learn how to handle our money better is to learn to pay ourselves first. That is, before we pay bills, before we pay rent or mortgage or even groceries, we pay ourselves first. Erasmus of Rotterdam is said to famously have said that when he gets money, he buys books, and with what's left over, he buys food. You're probably nodding along saying, yeah, that's the way I feel too. Most start with 10%, and this alone won't make you rich, but it's more about building a habit that unless you become one of those sellout academics making obscene money, you'll increase the percentage of what you pay yourself as you begin to pay yourself. You'll start with 10, handle that, you'll go to 25, or even the goal that most people have is 50%. That is, they take 50% and they invest it and they live on 50% of what they make. That means that every year or every other year, or however often, you get an increase in your pay, or maybe you get a promotion and it comes with a jump in pay. That you won't live on that new total amount, but you'll continue to live on the amount of money you were living with before you got the raise, cost of living, merit increase, or the promotion. That is, you'll have more money and you'll be able to pay yourself more. Pay yourself more first. Most in academia, let's admit it, we live with a scarcity mentality. We look at the world as a fixed zero-sum game and we say, if other people get money that's not there for me, but that's not the way money works, and we're smart enough to know this. But we somehow delude ourselves. Again, maybe it's the altruism, or maybe it's because we don't understand, or maybe we never took a real economics class. We just took this sort of philosophy of economics class. You know who you are. But money doesn't work that way. And in academia, you can pretty much predict what you're going to make over the course of your entire working career. You know, if you're at a public institution, you can see how much everybody makes, from the president or CEO down to your buddy across the hall. Yeah, you're going to be able to see because that's public knowledge. In private schools, it's a little more difficult, but you can know and estimate what your outcome is going to be. So you know that you're not going to get rich by just plugging along and teaching for 30 years. You're going to have to do something more. Otherwise, you're going to be old and poor, and they're going to say, I'm sorry, but we're done with you now. You know, post-tenure review and all that. Please go find something else to do. Like die. This means that we will not save our way to wealth and security. So let's say it together. I cannot save my way to wealth. Did you say it? I will not save my way to wealth. You're going to have to do something else. Let's look at breakdown of numbers. Now, 10%, if you pay yourself 10% of a $50,000 annual compensation. After that, after taxes, that's about $4,000 a year. That's the national average for someone in their 30s. So let's use that as a guide. Now, compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world, according to a smart person. You might have heard of him, Albert Einstein. Yeah, the eighth wonder of the world is time and marginal investments. So with $4,000 invested each year for 10 years with a modest return of 5%, the principal is $40,000, you can do that math, but it grows to $59,342.73 after 10 years of never increasing, but only adding $4,000 a year. Your $40,000 becomes $59,000 plus in 10 years. That's how compound interest works. We do this for 20 years at $4,000 a year and never increase it. That's $80,000 in principal. And that 5% return nets us $149,490.20. And if you add just 2 or 3 more years, our money in 22, 23 years is actually doubled. You see, this is the way that we turn savings into investments. Saving is a poisonous idea. It's a reserve idea. It means we hold back and withhold. It has no positive returns. It's simply a negative reinforcement of our scarcity mentality. Number 3 of the 5 of those investing basics for academics is this: we create our own investment account that we are responsible for. Yes, you're going to have to stop being passive aggressive about money and altruistic about it and say, I'm actually going to learn some of the basics and I'm going to risk something. Now, this is an exercise in learning for us, learning about making better choices in our investing. Instead of picking stocks based on vanity or virtues, you know you do it. Like you don't like Apple's labor practices, or you don't like Starbucks for the same reason, so I'm never going to invest in Apple or Starbucks, even though they offer fantastic returns, that we don't invest in them. And we congratulate ourselves. Congratulations, you haven't sacrificed your virtue to capitalism. That is, you don't like it, but what did you do with your money instead of doing that? So you know what companies you don't want to invest in. Do you have any idea what companies you do want to invest in? That is, unless you teach forever and your university is exorbitant in their compensation, congratulations, and your money just hits the windfall of the market and you do nothing but invest in your retirement account, you realize that unless that's you, unless you're exception to the rule, that is, if you're the rule, you're going to have to learn to invest more money than just the several percentile that the school will match in your retirement account. And that means creating an account that you control, either a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA, for example. Now, there are cap limits annually, but with time, they make significant contributions. And again, it's a percentage of our income, and we usually get it from, yeah, you get it, paying ourselves first. Now, the traditional IRA, you get a tax benefit for that, so you don't pay income taxes on it today when you do your taxes every year. But if it's a Roth IRA, that's after-tax income that you take and you invest, which means in retirement or whenever you start to use it in your late 60s, you don't pay tax on what is in a Roth IRA. Fourth of our 5 investment basics for academics is this: we invest in value or growth stocks, but we must invest in something. First, I have to get this out of the way. Investing is not gambling. Now, taking wild risks on flyers or news alerts or buying an option on a stock instead of the underlying stock itself, that's really closer to gambling. It's like standing in line looking for buying a lottery ticket, hoping that that's your retirement. You know the odds are easy. It's better. You have better odds of getting struck by lightning several times than you do of winning one of those mega payouts. Now, what do you actually invest in? Here, I have to tell you this. A lot of people, yeah, it might even be a majority, but they're too embarrassed to admit it, who actually open up a retirement account, a Roth or a traditional IRA account, and they deposit their money in there and they keep putting their money in there, but they never actually invest in or buy individual stocks or funds within that. They think because they have an account that says IRA on it, that somehow that's a retirement account. The interest rate on those, when you can get a high yield interest rate today of 4 or 5% on money because of the Federal Reserve's interest rates that they've made recently, increases, the interest rate on one of those IRA accounts, when you just stick money into that, is less than 1%. Again, you're losing money. You actually have to buy individual stocks or exchange traded funds, ETFs, that represent a portion or a sector of a market, and actually be invested through one of your IRA products. Yep, you actually have to buy something. And there are 2 options for us. One is a growth stock, and those are things like tech companies and startups, and those are the companies that actually return to you the promise of growing. So they take all their money that they make and they reinvest it in growing their business. They're associated with growth, so the price, the stock itself, the price of the stock increases. Your benefit from owning a growth company is that hopefully the price of the shares will increase over time. That's the growth. That's where you get your growth when you buy a growth stock. The option is to buy a value stock. Now, that's a more stable company that returns part of their profits to investors, to you when you buy it, and that is actually pay you to keep your money in the stock. And they usually pay quarterly. They'll average it over a year, so they may make between 2, 3, 4, 5%. By the way, the higher the percentile of return on a dividend, I know it's attractive, but usually the riskier it is, and the more likelihood of that company having to cut their dividend or eliminate it altogether if the economy turns against them. Just think banks recently that were paying dividends, and all of a sudden regional banks are threatened, and therefore what's the first thing they do if they aren't seized by the FDIC? They cut their dividend to zero. And all of a sudden that safe, secure value investment now is costing you money rather than making you money. Now, the premise of a value stock is that you get paid while you sleep. And then when they pay the dividend quarterly, you can set up a dividend reinvestment or a DRIP program. With most online brokerages, most fintechs actually offer this. It's a free option. So if you get a dividend from owning a company like Coca-Cola or Iron Mountain or 3M, you would get the dividend and it would be deposited into your account, and then your online brokerage would buy that exact dollar amount in fractional shares, if it wasn't equal to a full share price, of the same stock that paid you for owning the stock, dividend reinvestment. And that begins to compound the upside on those stocks, and that's the reason why people buy value stocks. Now, in that field of buying stocks, you can buy things that are individual companies, or you can buy exchange-traded funds, ETFs, and they can represent everything from a certain sector, like transportation or manufacturing or banks or energy, Or they can be of the S&P 500, and it just buys a portion of everyone according to its weight in the S&P 500, and you track the performance of the S&P 500, which has had over a 20-year period of time, usually a 7 to 8% return. So most people say, wow, I like that because I don't have to decide. And that brings us to the fifth of those best practices that academics need to learn to handle their money better, and that is how to take risks. Because yes, investing does involve risks, and past performance is no guarantee of future performance. They tell you that all over. It's a disclaimer everywhere. And so we want to diversify, and diversification is the magic in investing, where if one company or one sector tanks and the economy just crumbles, we say, at least we have money elsewhere. But most of us don't just diversify. Most of us over-diversify, and it's what Charlie Munger of Berkshire Hathaway calls diversification. I've done a video on it, and you can check out the details here. But it means we spread everything out so thin in so many different companies, or the S&P 500, when 500 different companies, that even if one company is in the news for having great results, what a great quarter, fantastic, the stock going to the moon, bottom left to upper right, we don't benefit from it. We just get a fractional benefit because it's one of 500 companies that we own. So what's the happy medium between putting all of our eggs in one basket or just spreading it so thin that we get no upside in order to get no downside? And that is to learn 4, 5, or 6 companies, to actually read about them, study them, to look at their longevity and what their future looks like and what they return. Are they growth or are they value? That is to become an educated investor. And we put our money into good companies that not only are around, but will probably be around and have a business trend, a business cycle. Yes, you know this. There are cycles to business just like there are cycles to the economy. And you invest in those and you hold them. They pay you, if they're value stock, to own them. They pay us while we sleep or while we study or while we teach or research or publish. They pay us so we don't have to be working. We can do what we love and we can get returns on our investments. That's the benefit of someone who is actually invested in a handful of good companies that gives them the dividend return and gives them the opportunity to sit in something. So you don't have to run between classes, check your phone to see how your stock is doing that day. You get to have a long view of the return on your investment. You get to put your money to work and let it work for you for a change. So if we follow these 5 basic practices for academics to get involved in handling our money better, that'll just make us wildly rich, right? No, it doesn't make us wildly rich. It just puts ourselves in a position where we can benefit to any upside that can come from our money, instead of the stuff that we hide in our old books that no one will read. I actually know a person that takes cash, their money, doesn't trust the banks. They're truly paranoid, a great academic. And they put it in old books that they have in their library. Not the library, their library. And they hide it in these books, and they pick books that they know no one is going to want to read. You know, the kind of books that you read. So instead of complaining, instead of suffering for a lack of money because you went to academia and you gave up on the opportunity of being rich, how about you learn to handle your money better because you're smarter than that. I know you can do it. And thanks for being part of the Do Over Show. Please, could you tap the like button, because that's an investment that pays. And while you're down there, subscribe and ring the notifications bell so you don't miss the next episode. I'm so glad you found me and I found you. Thanks.